Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
But what I have discovered, what I want people to know, is that followers of Jesus who want to know what the Lord wants to do with them can find that out. But I have really found that He is faithful to tell us what's next when it's time to do it.
My guest today is Jean Stoffer. She is an award-winning interior designer, author of the book Establishing Home, Creating Space for a Beautiful Life with Family, Faith, and Friends. You might be familiar with her show on the Magnolia Network called The Established Home, which features Jean and her design work and her family relationships, where you will quickly learn that what matters most to her heart is her faith, her husband, her grown kids, and her grandkids. Jean, I am so thrilled to have you here.
And I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Sarah.
I like to start with little Jean, toddler Jean, grade school Jean. Tell me about what you were like as a little girl, maybe even something your parents or your grandfather noticed in you. And how do you still see that character quality in you today? Just a thread through your whole life.
You know, I'm thinking that a great answer would be that they saw some sort of talent in me, but I don't think that's really it. What my experience was more is that I felt loved and accepted by them and nurtured. And we were given many opportunities to do many things. I learned how to play the piano. I learned how to play tennis. Academics were never, I would say, pushed in an uncomfortable way, but we were nurtured, given good environments to learn in. And I think, maybe at least for my case, that was what led to being able to discover what the Lord had put in me.
I love that.
I do not want to forget either. Probably the most important thing is that my parents became Christians when I was young, 4 years old. And so all that I knew was growing up was loving Jesus and learning more about Him. And that really set the tone for so many things.
You shared in your book, I think, about when you made that decision to say yes to God. How old were you? And then I remember you came home and told your mom, and I loved her response.
Yes. Well, I was 10. It was Sunday school. This is something we did every week, was go to Sunday school. I had always loved and experienced Jesus in the home. And it was at 10 years old that I realized, well, I was given the opportunity actually to invite Him into my own life, not just in my family's life that I was growing up in, but my own life. You know, it wasn't like thunderbolts or anything like that, but it was a moment and a marker for me.
And it was not too long after that decision that you were in school and you were given an assignment that involved graph paper and a ruler, and it lit your little girl heart up.
It did. I was given the assignment, along with all my other classmates, to build a little balsa wood house. It was art class. And that actually was the first thing in art that I ever felt any kind of interest in or excitement about. And I loved it. Figuring out the whole floor plan and then building it with balsa wood. Look, it's so funny because until I was really thinking through everything as I was putting together all the memories to write my book, that memory was something that was like deep down that I had not remembered, honestly, until so many years later. And it was almost an aha for me that actually at that stage, 11 or so, 12 years old, was the first time I ever experienced anything in this area of design. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, like a hidden little core memory that just sprouted up like a plant and is now an orchard of trees in your life.
Yeah, so cool.
One thing that makes me think about is just, as parents, as grandparents, it matters if our kid comes home from school one day and is like, guess what I got to do? Like,
Mm.
we get to water those seeds of just like, if you start to notice something is really lighting your kid up, like it could be a clue as to how they're
Mm.
wired and part of just those gifts and talents that God instilled in them.
That is very, very true. And then I think as things start unfolding, more pieces of that puzzle come together. And maybe as a parent, it's easier to see than a child, actually.
Or even not even a parent, like, I know even your grandpa Bradbury, he would do
Yeah.
something really sweet with you. He would, intentionally take you shopping. Not many teenage girls go shopping with their grandpa, but that was part of it for you, and he shared a couple things that I see throughout all of your design elements, is
Hmm.
this part of how he's wired.
Right. He was also always extremely driven by quality and like classicness. And so all of the clothing pieces that he would kind of offer to me as things I should consider always had very good lines to them, nothing too trendy, nothing, but always good quality. And the other thing that he brought into my life that I think is just so valuable and I'm so thankful for it is he had a true love and appreciation for art, particularly paintings. And he would actually, as I became a young adult, newly married in my early 20s, he gave me some of unframed pieces of art that he collected and he brought me to the frame store and we would work out the framing of each of these pieces together to learn what it is about the piece that would inform us on how we should frame it. So it's a whole piece of art, not just the art that happens to have some sort of frame on it. While doing that, he told me about the things to look for in paintings, what make them special, what make them, even if it's an unknown artist, what makes it a good piece of art. And that's something that I've just actually not only carried on, but tried to learn more and more about over
Mm.
the years. In fact, the room that I'm in right now, this is a piece that um, our viewers can't see this, or our listeners can't see this, but
You can
I
describe
have,
it.
yeah, I have art all over my home. And they were like in little files and on some of them were watercolor and some of them oil that he collected. And it's such a sweet thing to pass on of
Mhm.
appreciation and love for beautiful things and the people who create them.
And I wish that I could interview him and ask him, what is it about art that lights you up inside? Because it's truly all a piece of being an image bearer of Christ.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, God is the ultimate artist. Look at how he paints the sky every morning, every night. And so that piece of God's character was so deep inside of your grandpa that he not only enjoyed it, but wanted to share it and instill it in his family.
It's true. I do. I think about beauty and how the Psalms talk about beauty and that we want to gaze on his beauty. And that, as you were saying, we're image bearers. He created everything. And so when we bear his image, we get to experience some of that creativity that he is. And it's just really quite an extraordinary thing. Creativity and beauty happens in so many places too. It's not just design by any means. And it's a thrill, honestly, to be living in what the Lord has for us in that way.
Mhm. I totally agree. And I think that's actually one of the reasons that I'm so drawn to your story and this book. Again, it's called Establishing Home. I love to give it as a wedding gift, a housewarming gift. Basically, I thrust it upon all of my friends because actually I couldn't design a room to save my life. Like I can walk into one and know that I love it, but there space planning, if you were to ask me the square footage of this room, I would horribly fail. And so I'm so drawn to when someone is passionate about something that is not at all how I'm wired. And I think that's one of the reasons I loved your story so much. I want to share more of it with the person listening right now. Now, I want you to go get her entire book, but let's give a little bit of a sample. One of the most pivotal moments for you was the final day of your vacation as a young newlywed. You and your husband are walking along, and he springs some news on you.
Yes. He was a trader on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and he decided on vacation he was never going back to work again at that job. And he had nothing else planned at that point. He just knew he could never, ever go back. That was a shock to my system. I was definitely dependent on him and his income for the majority of our living expenses. Our young, very young, living in an apartment, it was very pivotal and it was important and an important part of our story. And one that took me a little bit of time to, number one, recognize his definite need to do this. He wasn't doing this to me. He was doing this really for us, I guess, really, when you think about it, for the longevity of our relationship and his emotional and health and all that. But it, I would say, lit a fire under me to think about what I could be doing that could contribute to the family more financially. At the time, I was working as like the admin for an interior designer. I had just gotten a raise from $2.85 an hour, which was minimum wage at the time, to $3.25 an hour because I was doing such a good job. And I kind of did some math and realized that's not going to even buy groceries, I don't think. So, but I had worked for 2 years for her and had developed a real interest in what she was doing and had also developed a skill that she suggested I get, which was learning how to draft. So I took a class to learn how to draft. And about that same time, also, one of my mother's friends called and expressed an interest in having her home kind of freshened up as she was a newly empty nesting couple. So she wanted me to do it because she had seen some of the things that I'd done in my own home. And it was very exciting. And looking back again, you can look back and see the road or the path that the Lord has put us on. Sometimes you do not know it as you're walking in it. You're just literally a day at a time looking for the Lord's leading, guidance, what to do next. Sometimes it has to do with open doors and closed doors, honestly. Sometimes it has to do with just praying and asking for a revelation even. But what I have discovered, and the thing that I feel like what I want people to know, is that followers of Jesus who want to know what the Lord wants to do with them can find that out. The Lord wants it for us. And so he is not going to withhold information from us that we need to do the right thing by him, to do the right thing at the right time. Now, a lot of times I feel like I've wanted to know something before it's time to know it. I know.
You're the
I think
only one that's ever felt that way.
And so we might think that the Lord isn't answering us. He doesn't hear us. There's a lot of Psalms actually that talk about that. Where are you, Lord? But I have really found that He is faithful to tell us what's next when it's time to do it.
And without faith, it's impossible to please God. So we have to take that mustard seed, which you did.
Mm.
It took you some time, but you worked it out and you were like, okay, Lord, show me. And I think wasn't it when you were doing this friend's house and it went well and she was pleased? And was that about the time where you said, Lord, is this how you're answering the prayer?
Yeah, it is. It is because was doing that work while still employed, and my boss knew about it. But I realized after it was done that this could actually be something. So it wasn't much of a risk, I have to say, because I wasn't making a whole lot. It's not like I was leaving this big paying job or something, but it was a risk, I guess starting my own business. I think maybe that's the beauty of being 23 or whatever I was at the time. Like, I didn't even know that it was a risk. Ignorance is bliss, I think.
Well, and a couple things I love about this. First of all, this was such a wonderful first client because she talked you up. She told all of her empty nest friends, you call it in the book the empty nest express. You're getting more phone calls because she was talking you up and more opportunities. But then another thing, and this is really a theme I see in your whole life. And I admit to you, I cried sometimes when I read your book. And oftentimes I would say, when I see the hand of the Lord upon the parallel of your career and your motherhood
Mm.
and the way that you were able to put your mothering first, and you had busy seasons and you had slower seasons, and it was such an organic growth of your business. I just see the hand of the Lord all over it. So when you and your husband found out you were expecting your first child, your baby shower was held in the living room that you designed for that first client.
Mm-hmm.
And would you share a little bit more about once you have this sweet baby, your firstborn, David, how you were able to maximize nap times, early bedtimes, and then as you had more children, just share a little bit about, motherhood and career.
Yeah, probably a huge topic for so many people. And I think what I realized during this time is that it's kind of impossible to do it all. And even though I think our culture says you can have it all or do it all, I think there's a functional aspect to that that just doesn't work because children are unpredictable. Children have needs that don't have, like, you can't put on a calendar. And I think I can say across the board, mothers want to do a good job mothering. I think it's in their heart to. But I think there's a lot of messages in the world that tell them, oh, they can, they can, they can, they can. And you can also do whatever this is, this big job, this full-time job. And my experience is that I couldn't. I felt like it was a mercy that I learned that early on. I want to spend a lot of my efforts encouraging young moms with the other side of that message that the culture is very good at giving, is that being a mother requires a lot of investment. It requires very specific resources that are finite. And the resources are primarily time and money, honestly. And investing in something, you expect it, you want it to grow. When you invest in something, it's because you want it to grow and thrive. I'm now doing that in a business, but there was a time of life where I needed to do it primarily for my children in my home. And that investment is worth it. It's just simply worth it. It's there are literally no regrets with it. Kids don't turn out necessarily how you exactly think they should. Surprise. But I think there's something about faithfully denying self and investing in children that at least is a life of no regrets. And I'm thankful for it. And I think sometimes we think, oh my gosh, if I don't do this now while I'm young, while I'm, beautiful, while I have the energy, this ship is sailing and it's going to sail without me. And I'm never going to have anything as far as career goes. And I guess I'm just really thankful for the story that the Lord has allowed me to live into to prove that's not true.
It's not true.
It's just not true.
Yeah.
In fact, I would like to say it's a lie.
It is a lie.
Yeah.
It is. Your career took off when your baby left the nest because the Lord knew that was going to be the best timing. Now, you're not necessarily like, on a cruise on retirement. Like you are modeling the timing of the Lord. It is very helpful for women like myself and my friends to see that's the beautiful way.
Earlier, Sarah, you said that you cried a couple times reading the book. And, it was quite the experience writing the book. And I found myself crying several times, realizing what the Lord had done. And not necessarily realizing it in the moment, but looking back and seeing what he'd done and his faithfulness and his kindness to me and his consistent, fulfilled promise that he will show me what to do when it's time to do it. And being in the Word a lot during, all those years was crucial to my being able to hear and understand whose voice it was that was speaking to me. And so I highly recommend that for every single person to spend time in the Word of God every day, because it actually becomes a track then that the difference between a truth and a lie, because you're inputting on a regular basis truth, and it's just indispensable.
You have a story that exemplifies everything you just said, and it's one of my favorites. It is when you have little kids at home and a job opportunity was presented to you that could technically skyrocket your career to the stratosphere. And part of it was exciting because,
Are you kidding? Totally exciting. Oh my gosh.
But you knew that you needed to take some time and pray about it, and you found your answer in the Word. Would you set the stage for that story and tell it?
I will. I had been working on kitchen designs for a few years, and my cabinetry maker had this business that he could not handle, and it was a development of high-end homes, and he needed someone to manage it. And it could have been like 100 custom homes that I did all the kitchen design for, with which, yes, would have catapulted my career, like beyond, maybe even past where it is now. I don't even know. But probably not. But I knew that this was so huge that it was not something I could just, think about and make a list of pros and cons. No, I needed to know absolutely what God's word was on this. And I prayed about it and prayed about it. And the story was in Genesis, where Abraham and Lot have now gained so much flocks and sheep that they had to separate for their flocks good. There wasn't enough land for them to share. And so Lot went one way, his nephew, and Abraham went the other way. And Lot's life at that time of separation became one where he did not follow the Lord. He wasn't nurtured by his uncle Abraham any longer. And he wasn't marinating in the things of the Lord like he would have if he were close by to Abraham. And the Lord just like put it in neon lights for me that you may have this amazing work, but you will not, you will have separation from your children, particularly like Daniel was 2 at the time, I think. And and then we kind of know what happened a lot later. It was not good. And I was like, I don't want that for anyone, let alone my own children. So I had to say no to this. And you know what? It was the easiest no I could have ever imagined. It was a confirmed, no questions. Thanks for the opportunity. It's a no. I never looked back.
Yeah.
I never pined for it. I never imagined what if. It was so certain the Lord had spoken that I could go forth in confidence.
And that's what happens, right? When
Yeah.
when he speaks, it's like, no, this is the better way. And, you made a little joke earlier that maybe if you had said yes, like your career could have been bigger than what it is now. No, that was actually a counterfeit opportunity.
Mm,
That
yeah,
was that
that
was
is true.
yeah. Because the
Yeah.
growth was
Wow.
coming, and you may have felt that deep inside. Somehow, you may have known a promise from the Lord for the flourishing that was to come. But you submitted that counterfeit opportunity to him, and he was like, "Nope, that will lead to ruin." Because in your book, you say,
Yeah.
you didn't want your youngest to wonder why his mom was always at a drafting table unavailable to him. And so, yeah, that's just one of the ways I saw the hand of the Lord so strongly on your family. And then, you fast forward through all those years where you were room mom and showing up and your house was a hub house and you've got people in and out. And then, as your kids start to launch, they all find themselves moving to all but one, the same location.
Mm-hmm.
And a big transition comes to you and your husband, and again, similar to, you could have been guided by fear when your husband said that he was gonna quit his job and he didn't have a plan. You could have let
Mm-hmm.
fear grip you, and you
Mm-hmm.
could have made fear-based decisions, and this was another opportunity. You could have made some fear-based decisions about moving from Chicago, where all your clients are, to Grand Rapids, where people don't really know you. But instead, tell me about a faith-based decision.
Wow. When our seemed like the center of gravity of our family was moving to Grand Rapids from the Chicago area, which we'd all been in whole life. And when 3 of our 4 kids made, finally we're like, yep, this is where we're going to be. I wanted to be where they were, but it was Dale's job. Dale did have a job by this time. Did for many, many, many years, actually. But Dale's job, he covered 11 states, and one of them was Michigan. So that was not a problem. But for me, as you were saying, my whole business was word of mouth in the Chicago area. So the idea was, okay, well, we're going to move. I want to move. I have absolutely no idea if I'll get another job. And yet again, I wouldn't say there was as dramatic a moment that I felt like the Lord was speaking, but both Dale and I, and it took a period of years where first one kid, then another kid, then a third kid moved there. So, but I felt like the Lord was preparing us all along, because when we closed the door and locked it for the last time on the house that we raised all of the kids in and lived there for 25 years, and pulled away with the U-Haul and the last item that we owned, taking it up to Grand Rapids, I sort of expected to have some big feelings, as the kids say now. And I didn't. The Lord had so prepared us, and it was so ready. The time was so ripe, that it felt natural. I would say natural.
Like flipping a chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
This is when your kids start to come in clutch for what has now become a family business. Because I know that the place that you found when you first moved to Grand Rapids, you restored it. That's Jean's thing. She finds the ugliest house you can find. It is falling apart. It is condemned. And she comes in and she walks in excited, like, look at the potential of what this could be. And in a second, I want you to talk about how that's a way that you bear the image of God. God is a reclaimer. He's a restorer. He takes broken things and makes them beautiful. He sees the potential. And I just feel like this is how you exhibit this part of God's character. But anyway, so you fix up this house. And I think, was it one of your kids that said, put one of those signs out front that has your business name and have the neighborhood over to walk through it. And then that's how you start getting clients. But your kids are like, Mom, you need a website. Mom, you need an Instagram. Like, Mom, you need
Yeah.
and you listened to everything, and they became just like an integral part of this next chapter as your grown children, which warms my heart to no end.
Mm. It is something that I could have never orchestrated. And so I don't have to hold onto it tight and defend it or grip it, because I did not make that happen. That was such a beautiful thing that the Lord unfolded for us. And yeah, Dave, my oldest son, is a doer. Like the guy, oh my gosh, he is. If I say, I think I should probably put a sign in the front yard, and he goes, okay. He gets on his phone, and 2 weeks later, something that I had approved the design, at least he did do that. It's in my yard because he's like, let's make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
And John, the second one, who's the photographer, was the one that identified the moment where Instagram is ready for design now, that he started to see it.
Told you to stop posting only grandkid photos.
Yes. Yeah, save that for something else. Yeah. And so since he'd been doing all this photography for me, I had all these digital photos to work with right away that I could just put up there, and I chronicled some stuff that we were doing, documenting the design and these and not the least of which was Grace, who, this is so funny. Later, I heard her side of the story. I always imagined it one way, which was her saying, I think that there's potential in doing whole home interiors, not just kitchens. And I think it might be fun for us to try it. And I thought of it, I thought she had this in mind as like a way to expand the business. But the way she later talks about it is that she came to me looking for a job because she couldn't juggle motherhood and teaching school. She couldn't do it and didn't want to. And so she wanted someplace that she could work a little bit at and maybe bring the babies if needed.
Just like you did.
So she termed it, and she had a totally different view of it than I did at the moment. Of course, I saw the beauty in all that for her, but I also saw the excitement from my point of view as a designer, having someone speak into an area that I wasn't as good in as she was, which was like the soft part of the interiors, fabrics and stuff.
A lot of what you're sharing is not only chronicled in your book, but also on your show on the Magnolia Network. And it brings up some of what you and I have already discussed, which is the lie that your best moments might be fleeting with your young skin in your 20s and 30s, right? Like, oh no, the world's going to pass me by because of age standards, beauty standards, insert any other lie here. And I know that at first you were thinking, when they were getting ready to do this television show, you're like, but I have wrinkles, Yeah. And then turns out, so do a lot of us viewers. And we are thrilled We are thrilled to see. And I know another hesitation you had was, oh, reality television. Like we've all
Mhm.
seen the contrived 30-minute forced conflict,
Yeah. Mhm.
anything to get
Mhm.
ratings. Let's pretend we're down to the wire and is it going to happen? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
you
Oh,
were
yeah. Yeah.
you were having none of that. And they have represented your family so well. It's just a heartwarming love fest.
Yeah, they have done such a beautiful job, and I credit a lot of people for this. I first of all credit Chip and Joanna Gaines because their vision for the network was telling stories. Joanna, I recently heard Joanna on a podcast saying that's how she would define herself as a storyteller. And I so she really rolled that out and wanted it to be done on a much larger scale than she could just do on her own, and wanted storytellers. And so that means so that was the vision. And she was like, particularly, you are never allowed to manufacture drama, and to tell that to the production crews, all the production crews, everything. That's not what we're about. We want to tell an inspiring story that makes people want to get up out of their chair and do something. And so from the top, that was the way it was. And then our production crew, I just, I, all the way from the people on the ground, there's usually 8 people in a production crew on the ground following us around with cameras and stuff. And then there's probably that many in post production putting all the bits together, because for about every minute that you see on TV, there's, I don't know, let's
A
see.
lot. A lot.
Yeah, a lot. Probably 30 minutes of filming. It's a
Yeah.
big ratio. So they go through all of it. And they've done such a beautiful job.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful.
Let's talk a little bit about what I brought up earlier. One of the ways that you bear the image of Christ is the way that you see potential in an old, dilapidated building. Your book tells countless stories of them. You love to restore to the potential to you love to stay true to the form of the building. Like there's so many details that you pay attention to, and it brings you such joy and satisfaction. And when I read about it, I just am like, that feels like kingdom. That feels like Jesus. That
Mm.
feels like God. Are you aware that you carry that aspect of his character when you redeem and reclaim and restore?
Um, that's a that's something that I feel very humble about, actually. Humbled by it, maybe is the better way of saying it, because he has done a work in me that was using, raw material that needed quite a lot of refining and work, and I'm so thankful he took the time and had the heart for it. And I see him doing it in my children, and I see him doing it in others. And I'm just so thankful he has the heart and takes the time and did the big work, allowing us to be forgiven. But the houses, it's so interesting. I do feel like we can be in, quote, ministry no matter what field we're in. And they are these homes, these kind of homes that have seen better days or have need help, need rescuing. It is true. It's a picture of us, and they're worth it. And I love doing it. And it is gross sometimes what you
Yeah.
find and what you work with. It's just gross. And a lot of times you don't see how gross it is until you start taking pretty things off. I just had this exact experience 2 days ago. We just wanted to just clean this one little area up, but it involved removing this cabinetry, which is usually a really easy thing, just backing out some screws because the cabinetry needed to just, it looked like foreclosure. So, but the room was fine. So But behind the cabinetry was exposed pipes, a damaged wall, an undone floor, a leak. And I'm like, shoot. But it's work now exposed. We can actually get at it. We can deal with it. We can redeem this room from what it was and renew it into something that's a new creation that's beautiful. And it is true. There's so much about us that we can put pretty face on, wear pretty clothes over, but we're still hurting. And we still need the redemptive work of Jesus in our lives. And he's so good. He's so faithful to do it. It's his favorite thing. It's like me when I go in a beautiful old home that hasn't been cared for decades. You could see the beauty. You can see it. It's peeking through. It's there. And I just feel like that's how the Lord looks at us. It's peeking through. It's there. It's just work to do. Let's do this.
I think that's a beautiful prayer that we could ask the Lord today. Help me see the potential in this person, in this project, in this problem. Someone told me recently that when something goes the way that you didn't expect, and that a great question to ask is, what does this now make possible?
Another thing that I've discovered when things don't go the way I expect, I later realized, oh my gosh, Lord, thank you. Because if I'd continued down that road, oh my gosh, you saved me.
Yeah. Jean, thank you. Thank you for this conversation.
Is it already time? Wow.
Thank you for this beautiful book. Thank you for the way that you steward your story, the way you love your family and lead by example, and the way you say yes to Jesus. I think there is a ripple effect that you will only see when you're in heaven and be like, wow, Lord, the Lord breathed on you. You think you're just redoing kitchens, but you're actually helping families leave a legacy of faith. So thank you.
Oh, let it be so, Lord. Let it be so.
Thanks for listening. We just wanted to take a minute to let you know that just like you and your family, Purposely is also part of a family, the Krista family of ministries. Krista helps kids and teens learn and grow in their faith at King Schools and Miracle Ranch Camp. And Krista shares Jesus with people in the poorest, most remote places through World Concern. Krista Senior Living is a community of love and care, and Krista Media is a place of hope on the radio. God is changing lives through these 5 ministries, and Krista is on mission to share the good news of Jesus. To learn more, visit Krista.org.